there are a lot of guys that wind up coming to this level and saying to themselves, or a program like this, and saying, my last place, I was the better player, but maybe I didn't get to play because there was pressure to go bring in this guy from the portal from this other school. And even if I came in and did all of the things right, there was never going to be an opportunity for me no matter what I put out there. And now they're here and they at least know if they're out there, it's because they're the best player. And if they weren't out there, it's because they gave it their all and some other person
Mhm.
legitimately won the job.
Yeah, I think money is a great thing, right? Like for a lot of guys, it's life-changing stuff. Like it can help, feed their families, and then a lot of dudes like set up their future, right, for their future family. So I mean, it's a great, great thing. Um, but I mean, I think it's this college football should be you should play on your ability and your ability in the way you prepare, the way you approach the day each and every day, and the person you are, and being the best version of yourself. And so I just think here at Texas State, Coach Kenny has done a great job of understanding that, NIL is a real thing. But at the end of the day, it's about opportunity and about, okay, what 11 guys on offense, defense, and special teams are going to give us the best opportunity to win and to win a conference championship? That's our ultimate. That's our goal, right? Because we can go 8-5 and win a first responder bowl again 3 years in a row, but no one wants that. You can go ask everybody in the building. Was last season a little bit of a disappointment? They'll be, yeah, it was,
So,
'cause
so we don't want to we don't the first the first responder bowl three-peat. We get the photos and the three
yeah.
rings. That's not no one is getting excited about the idea of a three-peat, the first responder bowl.
I mean, it would be great, but at the end of the day, our aspirations are so much higher than that, and I think we're so capable of something so much bigger than that, and an opportunity to win a conference championship, have a shot to play in the playoffs, but then too just get a really good a big bowl game, right? I mean, that's kind of our objective. We want to be able to show the nation, what we're doing here and kind of what we've been able to kind of develop over these past couple of years, and that's just kind of the reality of it.
All right, welcome to Zen Game. I'm here with quarterback Brad Jackson at Texas State. We're out in San Marcos. We just finished spring practice. How was the first spring practice coming in, kind of knowing that there might be a chance to play this year? It's probably a different leadership role being a second-year player than it was kind of being a first-year guy, where you also had a quarterback in Jordan McLeod that won Conference Player of the year before. So you kind of know when you got a guy like that in the team, he's the guy.
Yeah, I mean, it was a wonderful opportunity that I had. I knew that kind of going in, you have that year under you, and I had that year under the offense and with Texas State. And so for me, I kind of approached it, and there's that vacancy in the leadership role from the quarterback position. So I really took it upon myself to kind of just to be a leader out there, to be vocal for the guys, not only showing an example of how to do things, but also just being extremely vocal and encouraging guys and leading guys by example. And then just doing that each and every day, just being the best version of myself, just each and every day, understanding that I can have joy, going through practice, doing what I love. I get to play football, at an elite level here at Texas State University, and so the spring ball, I mean, it was awesome. Going from year one, you're kind of as a freshman, high schooler technically, you're scared to mess up, and you're just kind of, super frantic all the time. But then, year two, I come in here and more confident what I can do, and I've been under the system for a year now, under the same coaches, and so it was just a really cool blessing, and just I was super happy I was able to do it for sure.
It's hitting me now, but it is like because you were a spring enrollee, but like technically, even though you're in your, you're still a freshman by eligibility.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's all so confusing. But you're technically like my school standards, you're a sophomore. But like you're still like in your freshman year, but it's all kind of blows my mind.
Mm.
But I feel like there is a big maturity jump, like not just from like a football perspective, but that first year being away from family is very like it's such a massive personal jump to take, not just a football jump. I feel like that second, once you kind of had 2 semesters under your belt, when I talk to athletes, it feels like there's a major maturity bump for like all athletes and just anyone in general in college once you get kind of a full year under your belt of just being away from home and being on your own.
Yeah, because I mean, college, it's really the first time, you're away from your parents, away from your family for the first time. So, they're not cooking you dinner every night. You got to be responsible for yourself, and so for your rent and your bills and stuff like that. So it's definitely an adjustment for sure. But, being here, I'm still a freshman. I'm still in my true freshman year right now, and I've been here for a year and 4 months, and so it's just been kind of crazy just to kind of see the transformation I've had over the past really just year, year and 4 months. And for me, just going and really comparing myself from where I was this last April, where I was as a high schooler, technically still going to my high school prom, and still trying to enjoy those moments, and then being here at Texas State, trying to kind of battle that transition a little bit, but then now being here and I have a community behind me, I have all these friends in the world, a great coaching staff, and I've just been able to kind of have my foundation here at Texas State, and it's just been such a blessing for me that God's kind of led me to be able to do that, and it's just been awesome for me.
So what was it like when we kind of fast rewind before you become Texas State quarterback Brad Jackson, when you're in high school, like what is the experience of being a high school star you guys had a lot of success. What was the experience of being a high school star quarterback like?
Yeah, I think it's, being a Texas 6A, quarterback, starting quarterback, I don't think there's a lot of things that, kind of can compare to that, especially as such a young kid. It's awesome, you know what I mean? Because you walk around the school, everybody knows your name, you know what I mean? You had this big ego, all this pride in the world thinking, you're this guy and whatnot. And then being able to go out there and compete on Friday nights, I don't think there's anything like high school football. I think especially here in Texas, there's nothing like it. And so it's just been that's an awesome experience that I'm so grateful I was able to live and kind of see that and do that in my life. But at the end of the day, I'm here now, and everything's led me to be here, and you learn so much on the way here. And you gotta, when you get to college, you gotta kind of cut that pride and ego off a little bit, because it's a transition process, and you come from being the guy, and then all of a sudden you're not the guy. And so being able to transition to that, and then being able to really come into my own here has just been a blessing for me.
Was it where you were going to school, was it like very normal for like people like to stop in the grocery store and other things like that nature too and like ask for pictures? 'Cause I know that one of the parts that makes Texas high school football unique to a lot of places in the country is it's not just like within the high school that, you're a superstar, but it's a little bigger in communities and talk radio and things of that nature than maybe high school football is. And it's everything in a lot of these areas.
Yeah, I've had a couple of those opportunities, outside, and then what I love too is just being a role model for the little kids. The guys that are, the kids that are in middle school and elementary school. They look up to you. They're like, oh my gosh, you're the high school quarterback, and they look up to you, and that's such a responsibility that it's such a blessing that you're able to kind of take on just this kind of this role model, right? So then you try to, okay, I'm a role model for these kids. I got to be able to kind of show what it is to be a genuine, human being. And so just have those opportunities to meet new people and to be able to, talk with younger kids, be able to do those talk shows and stuff like that. I mean, it's an experience like no other. I think it's, they say everything is bigger in Texas, and it definitely is for high school football and being the quarterback, and the experience in the school, is also just, I mean, it's quite the experience because, you're in between classes, everybody's dapping you up, giving you props for the game before or whatnot, saying what's up. Everybody wants to know you and stuff like that. And so, and, I mean, it's experience that.
Women aren't. I know it says a lot of the show. Women play out the hardest thing, and
Yeah,
not that it would be here either, but not the hardest thing in high school.
this is true. This is true. It helps. It helps when you have the title of being a quarterback. All the girls want something to do with it. So
Yeah,
it definitely helps.
it's definitely a different experience than I had.
This is true.
But I will. I think that must have been a weird disposition. I was thinking about. Talking about going to prom. Like it must have been a weird disposition to kind of be back there, where everyone still feels all that excitement from your high school days, and then be here doing spring practices, and you're so humbled. Like you're still having all those people who are like, "Oh my God, you were amazing out there. It was cool, whatever." And then you got people here where you're just like, at that moment, like spring enrollee Brad, the separation that you must have felt from spring enrollee Brad to Sunbelt Player of the Year Jordan McLeod being in front of you must have felt pretty drastic at that moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a conflict of interest, you know what I mean? Because you're here, you're battling for kind of the third string spot, just to get reps, you know what I mean? To show the coaches that you're capable of doing this. And then you go back to prom for a weekend, you're with your guys, and we're still talking about the season beforehand, how we won the first round of the playoffs, ended up playing Westlake. We're still having, flashbacks to the good times in the locker room and stuff like that. And then you come back here and like you said, you're humbled because you're like, oh shoot, like I'm sitting behind Jordan McLeod right now, who's the Sun Belt Player of the Year, and it's a different environment. And so it's going from the high school stage to the college stage. It calls for that stage of maturity that you have to undergo, and it's guaranteed in every college player's life that you gotta have to go under that stage. And I did, through the spring, was just kind of a shell shock for me. And then as kind of the fall went on and you got into summer, then fall camp, you start to actually kind of get comfortable, and okay, now I'm gonna start to mature and kind of come into my own a little bit, and then just go on from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big jump. It wasn't even just Jordan. Like I'm thinking about now, you got a guy in RJ Martinez that played at Baylor. So you got players that have been through very entirely different levels of football than you'd ever experienced. One more thing on the high school front I was thinking about was, do you also experience like grown men coming after you on social media? Because I feel like that's like the only like this is the only region in the country almost where you'll have grown men like not just like people's high school like peers. It's one thing like on peers like, yeah, that was a rough game, whatever. It's like a 17-year-old.
Mhm.
It's gotta be different when like a 35, 40, 50, 60-year-old man's on social media like, yeah, you tanked it. Weird stuff.
Yeah, this is true. This is, I mean, I thought a big part of that was on Twitter. You know, like you have a bad game or whatever that was. I had several bad games in Houston, as you know, unfortunately, we didn't win a lot of games. You know, so we lose a game, and you go on Twitter and you see these adults who are 40 to something years old, have 2 kids, and you're like, all right, what are you doing? Spend your time on the app talking about a 17-year-old, 16-year-old kid about the way he performed, but. And that's just the way it is, That's you're able to be introduced to that at a very young age, and that's the same way on the college level as well, and then even the professional level. You're gonna have fans that are gonna give you crap for the way you perform, and they're gonna give you praise for when you perform really well. You know what I mean? And so, being introduced to that at a young age is a blessing because you got to see, okay, how am I gonna handle that? Am I gonna go and retweet this thing and try to go back at them and start this online argument, or I'm just gonna ignore it and move on? And it's a big test that it's a blessing you're able to go through. But in college football, that's what it comes with for sure.
I mean, I think it probably breaks a lot of kids, and the mental health that comes after that is
Mm,
probably terrible. But one of the things that I really think about as I sit in this chair is it's also probably the reason so many successful NFL quarterbacks come from the state and a lot of these programs because it probably gets you more prepared for this role than maybe you would have been if you hadn't experienced that at such a young age, because clearly you're able to persevere through that, have a ton of success, make it here, and now as you find yourself potentially in a position to be a starting quarterback at the Division I level this year and even better at the FBS level, you've been through that before, so it's not gonna in some ways, it might even have been more intense in high school than it would be here.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you're able to grow, especially like in the community. Like we played a game at Reagan where we played San Antonio Johnson. That's like they call it the Stone Oak Super Bowl. I mean, you have a stadium that's like thousands and thousands of people are in there. It's a sold out stadium. I mean, the fans are going absolutely berserk, and you're raised in that environment. Like that's nothing. That's only happens in Texas. You know what I mean? You have sold out these huge stadiums, and you're kind of embracing this environment. You have post game interviews. You have this thing where you have to carry yourself on the sidelines. In the locker room, you have to carry yourself because people are watching. There's eyes on you everywhere because there's so many people out there, and so it definitely prepares you for the next level here in college because you have every game is broadcasted now, so you constantly have cameras on you, you have eyes on you, and people are constantly watching you because it's like, okay, he's the quarterback, how is he going to respond if you're this person that's just throwing your helmet everywhere, getting upset. People see that, right? And they're like, oh, I don't know if we want to follow this guy. But if you're a guy that's carries yourself the right way, you're able to you know um, gain support of a lot of the fan base and the people around the program. And so that's kind of something that I've been introduced to at a very young age in high school, because I think there's nothing like it in Texas, and it's just such a blessing I was able to do that.
And has there ever been any game at Texas State yet that matched the intensity of some of those high school games that were at the highest? Like, not necessarily from like a team perspective. I know the approach you guys take is probably not probably the approach you're taking to a game is definitely more intense.
Hmm.
But in terms of just the fan atmosphere and the level of care that those people had about it, has any game matched that yet?
Yeah, I think UTSA and Arizona State were two big ones because I think they were both sold out. And then the student section is what makes it most. Like you have a high school, you have the student section and the band plan. And I think it was the same thing, kind of that environment for UTSA and Arizona State. You have the student section sold out, everybody's going crazy. They have their coordinated, white shirts or whatever theme it was for that week. And so those environments were, I mean, unreal. I think I got here to UTSA and I was looking up at the stands like, holy cow, this is insane. And I think it's definitely better than a high school environment, for sure. But I mean, it was just, I mean, absolutely crazy to play those
And
environments.
now you got to go to both those places on the road.
Yeah, Alamo Dome, and then up at Arizona State. Yeah, those will be fun for
Be
sure.
circled.
Uh,
There, I mean, different. I mean, obviously, UTSA is a big game every year to go. Kind of the distance between those two schools is so slim
mhm.
that it's a major bragging rights. But I feel like Arizona State's got to be circled in that calendar in a major way after they came into this building, feet away from us, and whew, it was just so close.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a heck of an opportunity. You know what I mean? It's, you know, the fans there, and it's gonna be an unreal atmosphere, and those are the games you dream for. You know what I mean? And so, I think those are just, you have the circle on your calendar, but it's no different than, you know, UTSA, or we start off with Eastern Michigan, you know, in August, and so it's really no different. It's just, at the end of the day, you got your game plan, you got the same guys in there, you just go to work.
As a competitor, though, is it pretty cool when you come into a game, and you know that you're gonna get to go against a guy like Sam Levitt, who was the highest graded quarterback in his entire like the highest graded freshman quarterback in the country. When you know you're gonna go up against a guy like that, as a competitor, it's gonna be pretty cool. And then from a broader team perspective to know, man, we're going against a Big 12 champion
Mm.
and a chance to show that we can beat a team that they took, you know, crosstown rivals Texas down to the wire
Mhm.
in the CFP.
Yeah.
You guys gave them about as good of a game as Texas did
Mhm. Yeah.
last year.
I think, for me, I'm not a guy that really carries a big chip on my shoulder saying, "Oh, you know, I'm going against this guy, I'm gonna prove I'm the best," because I know there's been a couple comments from quarterbacks, and they're thinking they're better than the other guy they're playing, and I'm not a guy that's gonna, you know, be playing the comparison game. I think that's a very it's not a very good, it's not a very bright road to follow, playing that comparison. But, you know, as a competitor, you know, especially I think about it from a team perspective, like, we get to go into Arizona State, play a Big 12 team that, I mean, took Texas to the wire. I mean, what an opportunity that is, you know what I mean? And so I think for us, that's a great opportunity to display what we've been doing, you know, what Coach Kenny's been producing these past 3 years, and what he's been building up. And so I think it's a great opportunity. You know, it's week 3, so it's very early in the season that we have that opportunity to be able to go there and show what we're all about, here at Texas State, and, you know, the culture that we're building, and what Coach Kenny's been able to do.
And set an amazing tone for a Sun Belt
Mhm.
conference season that's coming up, and the conference that is getting better and better across sports year over
Mhm.
year. It's becoming more and more meaningful to win this conference as more and more quality programs. I mean, Texas State's now obviously become a very quality program. James Madison is getting more and more respect as a big time program. You got, you know, Marshall won it last year as a very, very good team. You got, and then you got now you know that Southern Miss, by nature of Marshall being as good as they were, bringing the coach over and then a bunch of the players. There's just a lot more games on the calendar this year. I feel like are exciting games that maybe in past seasons people wouldn't look at it. I mean, before Coach TJ got here, you know, this wasn't even a bowl team ever, and now all of a sudden the standard's been set.
Mhm.
2 bowl appearances, both wins. And then on the other side of these games, a lot of teams that people wouldn't have been excited about, now it's like, man, this is gonna be 2 teams that people it'll be packed out here, it'll be packed wherever you're going, and that's an exciting thing that these are games that, you know, years ago at Texas State wouldn't be meaningful. Now they're exciting games.
Yeah, I think, you know, Texas State, we're labeled as, you know, the G5 team. Oh, it's the Sun Belt, but I don't think a lot of people realize how many P5 players there are in the Sun Belt. You know what I mean? Like, even on our team, we have a lot of P5 players on our team that have come from their respective programs and come down to play with us now. And so, people say, you know, it's a G5, but, you know, like you said, like, we went down to the wire with Arizona State. They're a Power 5 Big 12 team who almost went to the national championship. And so that just proves, like, the gap in, you know, Power 5 and G5 is so, I think it's shrunken so much since the transfer portal's kind of come about. And, you know, we have, you know, these players now on our team that it gives us the chance to be able to compete. And then in the Sun Belt too, like, you're playing against guys who have the chance to go to the NFL and get drafted, you know, I mean, each and every game. And so I think it's a conference that, you know, I think it's often looked over a little bit, but I don't, it shouldn't, you know, I mean, we're labeled as a G5 program, but I think we have the ability to compete with anybody in the nation.
I think that as you say that too, I think a lot of people, because they hear the stories in the media, assume that every single player is making their decisions based off of money. And so these teams aren't as good as they could be. And that might be true in some places, but you got situations like Southern Miss, for example, where a lot of those players followed their coach because they want to win another championship that could have gone to a Power Five school instead, especially their quarterback, Braylon Braxton. That was one of the best quarterbacks in the country last year that opted to follow his coach for his own career development. So not every player is making, and you see it in your roster as well, not every player is making decisions just to enter the portal and go make the most money they possibly can. A lot of people love playing with the people they're playing with and the coaching staff they're playing with, and that's true across this conference. There are a lot of excellent teams out here that would go toe to toe with any Power Five type program.
Yeah, and I think, for the transfer portal, you know, people, NILs, you know, it is what it is, and a lot of people use the transfer portal as ways to see, all right, it's a bidding process, who can give me the most money. But for me, I think it should be used as, okay, what team gives me the best opportunity to better me as a player and to better me as a person, right? And looking at that, you look, okay, who's the coach there? Okay, what's the culture like? You know, what is my opportunity going to look like there? And I think, and that's why Texas State is such a great place, you know, for anybody, but then also for myself too, because I mean, this is a place where, I mean, the culture is getting shifted right in front of our eyes. Like Coach King has done a great job over these past 3 years of just shifting the culture year in and year out, and just allowing it to be a player-led team. You know, I think that's the biggest thing too, especially in college football, it has to be player-led, and just understanding that, I mean, this place is special, right? And that you know, our goal is to go win a conference championship and have a chance to go compete in the college football playoff. And so, for us, I think it's a great welcoming place for people that are in the transfer portal, because it's a great opportunity. You know what I mean? It's, you know, where the G5 is just the way it is. We don't have millions and millions of dollars to throw at players like, you know, these other schools will have. And so for us, I think the bargaining point is the opportunity here you're going to have here is going to be like nowhere else in the country.
It's weird. I was just doing the math on it, but like there are going to be individual players at Arizona State whose yearly NIL rev share, whatever they want to call it now, whose yearly income is greater than the entire roster here.
Mhm.
Like that,
Mhm.
that's a crazy thing to think about. Not player. There will be multiple players on that team that
Mm.
are making more than the entire roster, and that's got to be just like it's not that that's a chip on the shoulder, it's just the reality. And so there are, by nature of that, there are guys that one of the challenges of the NIL era, I think that teams are dealing with on the other side, is that your teams will pay large sums of money and donors will put up large sums of money for these kids to go play. And then they aren't the best player at that position. And then coaches then feel pressured to play the kids. Whereas maybe in programs where it isn't as prevalent, you have the opportunity to have real position battles, and players can come in and they can have the confidence that if they're the best player at their position on game day, I can guarantee you Kenny's not playing a guy who he doesn't believe is the best player at that position come time to go.
Absolutely. I think, you know, NIL it's kind of the landscape of college football these past couple years, but I think it has its pros, definitely. You know, you're able to make money off of yourself, but then too, it has a lot of cons as well, just because, you know, these kids who are, you know, 20 years old getting thrown these millions of dollars, that it's just like, and then, you know, it changes them. Like, it's true, like, money does change them, and so I believe we have the opportunity, you know, we're not making these millions and millions of dollars, which that's fine. Like, that's absolutely fine. I don't need $3 million on my plate. Like, I don't need that right now. I don't think anybody does, as far as, like, you know, you're this young of a player. And then too, it's like everything is genuine here. Like, competition here is genuine. It's all right. The best guy is going to play. You know, there's no favoritism over, okay, I'm paying this guy this much money, so I have to pay him, or I have to play him. It's more like, okay, if you're the best guy, you're going to play. That's the way it works. And I think that's how college football should be. You know, but unfortunately, you know, NIL has kind of changed that a little bit. But I mean, that's just kind of the landscape of college football today.
Like you said, to go full circle, it's a blessing in this program
Hmm.
because that doesn't exist here. And in fact, I'm probably sure there's like a happiness for the guys that do get the opportunity to help feed their families and other things if they go take an opportunity. But once spring practice started this year, we got this excellent roster of players. The portal's been allowing guys that maybe wouldn't have started here to be a part of this experience. And there are a lot of guys that wind up coming to this level and saying to themselves, our program like this, and saying, my last place, I was the better player, but maybe I didn't get to play because there was pressure to go bring in this guy from the portal from this other school. And even if I came in and did all of the things right, there was never going to be an opportunity for me no matter what I put out there. Now they're here, and they at least know if they're out there, it's because they're the best player. And if they weren't out there, it's because they gave it their all and some other person
Hmm.
legitimately won the job.
Yeah, I think money is a great thing, right? Like, for a lot of guys, it's life-changing stuff. Like, it can help, you know, feed their families, and then a lot of dudes like set up their future, right, for their future family. So I mean, it's a great thing. But I mean, I think this is college football you should play on your ability, and your ability in the way you prepare, the way you approach the day each and every day, and the person you are, you know, and being the best version of yourself. And so I just think here at Texas State, you know, Coach Kenny has done a great job of understanding that, you know, NIL is a real thing, but at the end of the day, it's about opportunity, and about, okay, what 11 guys on offense, defense, and special teams are going to give us the best opportunity to win, and to win a conference championship. Because that's our ultimate, that's our goal, right? Because we can go 8-5 and win a first responder bowl again 3 years in a row, but no one wants that. You know, you can go ask everybody in the building, you know, was last season a little bit of a disappointment though? But yeah, it was, because
So we don't want to we don't the the first responder will three-peat. We get the photos and the three rings. That's not no one is getting excited about the idea of a three-peat, the first responder bowl.
I mean, it would be great, but at the end of the day, our aspirations are so much higher than that, and I think we're so capable of something so much bigger than that, and an opportunity to win a conference championship, go play, have a shot to play in the playoffs, but then too just get a really good a big bowl game, right? I mean, that's kind of our objective. We want to be able to show the nation, what we're doing here and kind of what we've been able to kind of develop over these past couple of years, and that's just kind of the reality of it.
And it's definitely going to put us players. Talk about being a player-led program. Has one of the big differences this year been that you got 3-year guys in the program that now have been in the staff for a while, and so they're able to understand. It's hard to, as much as coaches want to talk about a program being player-led, when you don't have guys that have been in the program for more than a little bit of time, it's hard to have that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it helps too because we've had players that have been in the system for multiple years now. We've had guys that have started. Like I'll just name a couple. We have Justin Strawn on the O line. We have Bo Sparks, Chris Don Jr. We have Lincoln Perry, who's a big one. On the defensive side, we have Khalil Alexander. We have Ryan Nolan. We just have a bunch of guys who have been here for multiple years and you know what we're trying to do here. And I think that's super, super important when trying to develop a culture and then trying to develop a player-led team that is, the coaches can do so much, but unfortunately their eligibility years are run out. I mean, they can't go out there. Coach Kenny can't put on the helmet and go run out and play for us anymore. It has to be us. And so understanding that we have to take, the personal responsibility of understanding that we are the people that are going to thrive this team and we're going to be the engine for this team, understanding that and kind of approaching, each day knowing that we have to bring our all and that we have to be the best version of us each and every day to lead this team every day.
What's an example you can give one of those guys or somebody else that you really feel like as you were getting started, that they were able to really help shape your experience in a positive way, or maybe somebody else on the team this year you noticed that they were able to really make a big difference for this roster as leaders on the team?
I think Lincoln Perry is a great example. I mean, that guy, has been through it. It was at Arkansas State, had the knee injury, came here and then, was kind of sitting behind Ish and had the opportunity to go play, the first responder bowl this past game and won the MVP. You know what I mean? You have a guy that is so genuine as a person, right? And it's just when you say leader, like that's the guy that pops up in your head. Like he's a vocal guy in practice. He was hurt this past spring with a hamstring injury or a quad injury, and he had to sit out pretty much the whole entirety of the spring. But he's still back there watching every single rep, talking to the running backs and supporting the guys and rooting for them. And that takes a lot of just like, what's the word for it? Unselfishness, right? Unselfishness, because I mean that guy could have very been easily been, oh, I'm hurt and I'm not gonna clap these guys on because I'm jealous of these guys playing and I'm not. But I mean he's totally a humble and approaches with a lot of humility and just leads by example each and every day and just kind of just gives you the prime example of what a leader actually looks like.
Yeah, I think that it's shown through any time I was around the school last year even, that the amount of everyone, even fans can feel. Like just I think there's something sometimes when someone has a certain nature, people can kind of tell like this person is a person I want to root for.
Hmm.
And I just feel like everyone was rooting him on to have success because of the way he carries himself.
Hmm. Yeah, I always joke like I think he can run for mayor one day and people would vote for him. You know what I mean? He could do that easily, and so he's such a lovable guy, and it's just like you want a guy to be a face of a program, and to represent you. I mean, that's the guy you want because I mean everything he does it with the right intentions. He does it the right way, and he's just such a unselfish guy. Puts others first, and that's just a guy you want to rave about, and you want to talk about because he deserves that credit, even though he doesn't want a lot of the times, but I mean, he brings it each and every day, and he's a guy that even I look up to each and every day because he's a fifth-year guy, and there's kind of questions. Oh, maybe he'll be back this year, maybe he won't, but he's here to stay, and he's gonna have a hell of a season this year.
Great guy to have in your backfield in the huddle, and to have those type of insights that come with playing as much as he have and hasn't been as part of as many rosters as he has. If you look at another guy on the team, maybe that you have your mantra, habits reflect the mission. Who's a person whose habits you feel like most reflect the mission for this team to be a Sun Belt Conference champion?
I think a big example, we'll go to the defensive side, like Ryan Nolan and Khalil Alexander. Those are two guys who, you have Ryan Nolan, who's a free safety, and Khalil Alexander is a defensive end. I mean, those guys are leaders on the team, and I think I love about those guys is in the spring you see how vocal they are, on that defensive side of the ball. Because I think that's one thing that I kind of felt last year. There was a little bit of kind of, you know, this kind of weariness about. I feel like it was a lot of it was, offense versus defense. Like fall camp and spring ball, you have offense versus defense, which essentially that's true, because that's all you're doing is going against each other. But at the end of the day, we are wearing the same, we have the same name on our jersey, and I think like we understood that this spring. That was the biggest difference is, we had guys in the offense, guys in the defense, and I'll rave about Ryan Nolan and Khalil, who are just leaders on that side of the ball, and they're constantly encouraging people, just filling the locker room with just with goodness, and they do things the right way. They come to work each and every day. They're not a guy. They've been here. They're gonna be here on time, and they're gonna be the last ones to leave the facility, and so. I think those guys are, you want to rave about, on the defense side of the ball, and they're going to be two superstars for us this upcoming year. And just, I mean, it's such a blessing you're able to have those guys that, represent Texas State football.
And set an example for on the offensive side, even if you're playing different positions, their example makes you want to be a better player at anything you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very valuable thing. Moving to a different subject, we talked a little bit about your faith in the past, big part of your journey here. You went on a retreat last year that was very life changing for you. Last time we spoke, you were about to go on that retreat again with FCA that weekend. So was that equally more different? Like how was that this year? With like what you said, you recruited some teammates to come. How was it this year?
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I'll kind of go back to last year. That was the moment we do this thing through FCA called College Weekend. It's basically a retreat. We'll go out to Glen Rose, Texas, at this cabin grounds a little bit, and you're there for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and you're able to just worship the Lord. Play games, just be able to have community and have camaraderie with fellow believers, and it's just a really good time every February. We'll go, and I ended up giving my life, resurrendering my life to Christ last year at College Weekend, and this year, I was there, and I knew how much it changed my life. I said, I can't reserve this for myself. I have to get as many people as I can, to come here and experience what I've experienced. And we had 11 football players go, and 9 of them ended up surrendering their lives to Christ. And I think that's just such a powerful testimony, just to show how powerful God is, but then how good of a time this was, at College Weekend, and what FCA has been able to do, just saving, so many guys, saving their spirituality, and allowing them to be able to have that eternal life in Christ. And it was just such a cool experience for me. It puts a smile on my face every time I think about it. And I was there, and just kind of encouraging guys to kind of take that step, too, because I think it's an environment that I've never felt before. You're there, we're just worshiping and constantly in the presence of the Lord. It's something that you just can't really replicate, and just being in that environment for 3 days, it's eventually the Spirit's gonna get into your heart, and that's why we had 9 guys out of 11 surrender their lives to Christ.
I was in a spiritual retreat this past weekend actually, and it's a bubble that kind of gets created, right? It's like almost like you're kind of bummed that you have to leave that
Yeah.
bubble because you're in such a wonderful space with so many people that are just getting a second to acknowledge that it's easy to get caught up in the little things, but you get to be in a space where you get to acknowledge that there's so much more going on in life than just whether or not you win against Arizona State or not.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to, here on the earth, you can have all these stats in the world, you can have all the records, but it's like, all right, well, what does that do for you? Because you can't bring that to heaven, you can't bring your money, your wealth, and the materialistic things of this world, after you die. And so it's like, okay, then what's really the point in doing this if you're, just doing things for stats or money? It's like, no, in the reality, the way you want to approach, the way we play football and the way we approach life is having an eternal perspective, and realizing that everything that I do is for the glory of God, because I am only here by the grace of God because He loves me so much. And I am here because He has blessed me with this opportunity to be here. Therefore, through this, I have to I have to give him all the praise and the glory because I mean, he's the only reason that I'm here. And so just having that perspective, I think, and understanding that, okay, what's the meaning of life? It's okay. This life on earth is a preparation stage, for your life in heaven. And I think the earlier earlier you realize that, the better. Just because you approach this life with so much more peace and so much more joy that you wouldn't have otherwise.
And a few things that come off of that, I think that, I say something like, well, there's things that are more important than
Mm,
beating Arizona State, and someone could take that to say like, oh, I'm saying that, you come to this retreat and it's like, I don't care about beating them anymore. And I think it's like, that's actually, I was thinking, it's coming through me. I'm like, that's actually the furthest thing from the truth.
yeah.
Actually, what ends up happening is when you talk about all these material things, that's how you get in the mindset of, oh, State has spent this much money on their coach, they spent this much money on their team. How could it be possible?
Yeah.
That's where you get caught up in how could it be possible that we
Right.
could be a team like Arizona State?
hmm
You go to a retreat like that, you share an experience like that,
hmm
you see it's not only possible, but you can walk in with the belief that, no, we've been armed with these gifts, like you said.
hmm
Of course we could win a game like that.
hmm
And when you want to go put the best display of yourself, you're living with this gratitude and you say, I want to put the best display of myself out there.
hmm
It becomes not just like, maybe we can, but like, we believe that we can. And that's a big, I think you kind of walk away with the belief that you can do anything
hmm
with a group of people that are that connected.
Yeah, of course. And then, God's blessed us with the opportunity to be in this sport that's very competitive. It is. And you can get really trapped into the comparison game and looking at other teams and looking at other players and seeing where they are compared to where you are. And that's something that, Jesus talks about, not living in that comparison, right? And living a life for him and him only, understanding that you are enough. But then two, understanding that, if we go out there and, if we, against Arizona State and we lose, or we lose to UTSA or Eastern Michigan, I mean, it's obviously it's going to stink for us because as humans and competitors, we want to be able to win those games. But at the end of the day, we're fine. You know what I mean? And having that eternal perspective of like, okay, did I do that? Did I live for the eternal purpose for God as best as I could? If the answer is yes, then there's nothing more I can do.
I also can accept that maybe there were lessons in that game that help you win the Sun Belt later or help you do something later in life, even than that, that were very meaningful. But at the same token, one of the things I love that you said is like, we're being given this opportunity for a reason. And you can come into a game like that with the opportunity. We're given people, some Vegas line might write you off completely,
Mhm.
but you can come in with a more high vibrational perspective than Vegas
Mhm.
to say that we're being given the opportunity to play this game
Mhm.
for a reason. We're getting on a plane, we're going to go out there, and we're going to get to play it for a reason. So why not play the best that you can?
Exactly. Yeah. And then just, I mean, being the best version of yourself and realizing that we are so blessed to be playing at a Division I FBS school.
Yeah.
Have the opportunity to play in these environments each and every day. Like kids are dying to be in our position. You know what I mean? So when we have these first world problems of, oh, I'm not playing, maybe I didn't play as well as I wanted to, or have the practice I wanted to, it's like, in the day, these are just first world problems, right? Because we realize that there's so many people that are dying to be in the same position we are. So, I mean, we truly are blessed, right? And then turning that around, we have to continue to give the praise and the glory back to God because we understand that we're only here by His grace and His grace alone. And so, just having that perspective, I mean, gives you peace and joy to be able to do this and to do that with a smile on your face and with joy and peace, understanding that His will be done on earth as is in heaven.
If you look at a player on the roster last year, could still be on the roster now, that you felt did a particularly incredible job of leading with their faith and demonstrating even in the hardest moments that that faith was completely unwavered, who would that be?
I think Nash Jones comes to mind. He was our left guard this past year, and I mean, talk about a leader. Like that guy represented everything about what a leader meant. And I mean, before every single game, he'd call everybody up to the center of the field wherever we were at, away or home game, and he'd gather everybody up and he'd pray for us. And be able to do that every single game, you just know that he's founded in his faith. And then one of our running backs, Deion Hankins, who's also preparing for the NFL draft. He's a guy that was constantly at FCA, constantly at Bible studies, and he has a lot of experience, and his spirituality is very deep. And that's a guy I've talked to a lot, and growing my faith, and I mean, me potentially growing his, and that's been such a guy I've been blessed the opportunity to be able to know and be friends with over this past season, and just being able to talk to. So yeah, Nash Jones and Deion Hankins, those are two guys that come to mind with that.
Do you have an example in one of those tougher losses last year where one of those leaders or someone else was able to use their faith or their belief to help uplift the rest of the team and show them that there was a greater purpose, even in one of those moments that, because like we said, even though it doesn't make it less agonizing,
Mhm.
you still feel, even when you're a man of faith, you still feel the pain of a tough defeat like that.
Mhm. Yeah. Not too many examples come to mind, but that's something that I wish we could have had a lot more opportunities to do. Because we had a lot of games there where unfortunately we were on the end of we were the losing end of it. Like Sam Houston was a rough one. Arizona State's a rough one. And you're boiled up with so much emotion, right? And you're so angry because you're a competitor and you want to win those games for the program and for yourself. And that's one thing I wish we could have done was just at the end of the game, just realizing that at the end of the day, there is a bigger purpose than what this game serves, and kind of realigning ourselves and putting our emotions aside. As emotions are great, but they're not very good idols. You know what I mean? And so, when it comes to that, that's something that I want to be able to do with this team this year is making the main thing the main thing, and just building this team and really just I've told many people this, but it's getting Jesus' jersey in the locker room and really bringing him into the locker room and just introducing people to him, and then doing things the right way and understanding that there is an eternal purpose that we have, and where we can very well use this platform that we have, that we're so blessed with, to further the kingdom, right? Because that's what brings pleasure and glory to God.
And so it's a role that you get to take as is it something that you feel like you had those examples last year that now as they leave, you can take that on also and even bring more?
Absolutely, yeah. Those guys, I mean, served as great role models and kind of mentors for me, to show me kind of how to do things and how to kind of approach the team when it comes to those areas. So, it's kind of a sensitive topic for some people, because they're very unsure about things, and it scares some people. You know what I mean? People, and then some people don't know about it at all. And so just approaching it from a very loving perspective and understanding that, regardless, if you're a believer, and if you want to go on this faith journey, great. But if you're not, I mean, you're still my brother on the field, and I'm still going to fight for you the same way. And so those guys, just being able to show that role model was great for me.
On to some fun things as we wrap. You had an Instagram post. What is the salty spittoon? Did I get that right?
It's SpongeBob reference. Yeah,
Ah,
the Salty Spittoon. It's an episode where it's this bar in the Bikini Bottom, and it's basically for the toughest people in the Bikini Bottom. And SpongeBob basically spends the episode trying to get into the Salty Spittoon, and keeps getting referred to different places, such as Weenie Hut General and Weenie Hut Juniors. And so yeah, it's a fun one. It was one that I kind of sent out, and I was hoping, the collective group of people that understood the reference, that would go more than the people that
I
didn't.
didn't understand it, but now I do.
Now you do, so yeah,
I'm up to
SpongeBob.
speed.
So yeah,
And I guess is that metaphorical because now you got let in because
yeah.
you get to compete for the job this year.
This is true. I love that. I didn't even think about that when I posted. I was just kind of being stupid, being myself a little bit, but that's true. I have the blessing to be able to compete this year, and it's gonna be fun.
So I get to try to bring deeper meaning to the reference.
Yeah.
If you can look at what your what was the most exciting aspect of the spring for you that maybe you haven't shared in the show yet? Because it sounds like it'd be hard to pick something deeper than maybe
Mhm.
helping 9 people. Was that more powerful than even the year doing it yourself, helping 9 individuals find something in
Mm.
themselves? Oh, probably all 11 did, but helping 9 individuals take a step like that, that you probably got to see really just better themselves. Is that even more powerful than your own experience last year?
I think so. I think so. Because when you're able to, when Jesus calls us to make disciples, and so when you're able to invite the guys, and I didn't, transform those guys. I didn't save those guys. I presented the opportunity for them, and the Holy Spirit guided those guys to go to college weekend and change their lives for the better. But I mean, ultimately, God saved them and really touched their hearts. And I can say that I got them the opportunity. I didn't save them. I'm not responsible for saving anybody, and I can't. But I can give that opportunity, and be able to make disciples. And I mean, I was super blessed. I was able to do that, and it was just an awesome experience, and just continues to warm my heart the more and more I talk about it.
So outside of that, 'cause that's pretty incredible. What do you think the most exciting thing for you was this spring?
Yeah, I think it's just being able to lead. I mean, that's something that I wasn't able to do last year because, you know, you're this high schooler. It's like if you say something, it's like most likely people are gonna be like, all right, don't listen to the 18-year-old kid. He has no idea what he's talking about. But, you know, this year, you know, I have that year of experience. I was fortunate to be able to play in 3 games last year and have the opportunity to showcase what I can do a little bit. And so just being able to approach the spring and be vocal for the guys, I mean, that's something that, I mean, I love doing. I love leading. That's something that I truly love doing and supporting the guys and just kind of just keeping, because I mean, I think it's so important for a college locker room is having a guy that can lead vocally and then do it throughout a practice. Because, you know, it's in San Marcos, it gets hot. It gets hot here in the spring, and, you know, these guys, you know, are probably, you know, battling some internal battles in the mind a little bit. But I feel like when you have that voice that's kind of continuing to keep you pushing forward, it definitely means a lot for those guys. And being kind of thrust in that position was only awesome for me.
I can't wait to watch it. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. It's going to be a heck of a season next year.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.